Specifically, I wanted to do today's show to cover Venezuela and what's happening in the embassy in Washington, D.C. Now, just to get you caught up to speed, what's happening in Venezuela is Venezuela has twice the amount of oil that Saudi Arabia has. And so Donald Trump, John Bolton, and Elliot Abrams, the war criminals they are, want to get their hands on that oil. So they're manufacturing a crisis in Venezuela by putting sanctions on their economy that the UN rapporteur on Venezuela has called a crime against humanity. And in fact, 40,000 people have been killed because of these sanctions. That gets no press in the United States. And if you watch the United States, what's happening in our press, exactly what happened in the run-up to the Iraq War, exactly what happened in the run-up to the Libyan War, what's happening is that the press is going along with the military-industrial complex and the government, and they're being lapdogs to power. For instance, they tried to do a coup. We covered it. Look at our other video. Juan Guaido tried to do a coup. They tricked some soldiers into joining them, but those soldiers quickly realized that they were being tricked, and they went back and they abandoned Guaido. And so here's Bloomberg News. There is no coup in Venezuela. The uprising in Caracas is an attempt to restore the government's legitimacy, not overthrow it. That's not true. This is a coup by Elliot Abrams and John Bolton and Trump. And the Democrats are in bed with them, just like they were with George Bush and Dick Cheney in Iraq. Okay, this is exactly what's going on. And here is, don't call it a coup. This is the Washington Post. Venezuelans have a right to replace an oppressive, toxic regime. Nobody is on the side of the people who wants to do a coup in Venezuela. You know who's on the side of them? Elliot Abrams, John Bolton, and Donald Trump, and the capitalists who want to steal their oil. So just to bring you up to date, here's Anya Parampil. She tweeted this story out. We spoke to Mark Weisbrot on unauthorized IDs about his report showing U.S. sanctions on Venezuela killed 40,000 Venezuelans in a single year. There's been a media blackout about this report, and so she links to it. Now, this gentleman, Carlos Vecchio, they're putting a siege on the Venezuelan embassy in D.C. Now, Maduro is the elected president of Venezuela. There was an election. Maduro won that election. The opposition didn't partake in that election, and now they want to throw him out of office. Well, you have to participate in the election if you want to get a hold of an office. So this guy, Carlos Vecchio, he's in bed with the CIA and Trump, Bolton, and Elliot Abrams, and Juan Guaido. So he's trying to say that he's the ambassador from Venezuela, and they're trying to take over the Venezuelan embassy. And I'll show you really briefly what's going on. I'll show you, here's some video of it. So there's CIA-backed oil company, military industrial backed Venezuelan protesters, right? So they're there at the embassy. Now, they're the people protecting the embassy. So Code Pink is there, right? There's Medea Benjamin. So they're protecting the literally, they're trying to break into the embassy, the CIA-backed pro-Venezuelan coup people. They're literally trying to seize the embassy. And so lots of people have gone into the embassy to occupy it, and so they can't do that. And so right now we're going to bring on someone, Anya Parampil. She's actually inside the Venezuelan embassy. She is previously hosted a daily progressive afternoon news show called In Question on RT America. She's been covering what's been happening in Venezuela, and she's actually in the Venezuelan embassy right now as we speak. So she's here to fill us in. Now, Anya, thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure, Jimmy. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So we featured some of your reporting from inside Venezuela, where you showed the pro-Maduro rallies that the mainstream news in the United States will not show. And now you're inside the Venezuelan embassy. So tell us what's going on with this guy, Vecchio, and what's happening there.
The breakdown you just provided is quite accurate, Jimmy. Essentially, what's happened since the Washington administration here, the Trump administration here in Washington, began this coup in January, this attempted coup, there's been a slow progression here in Washington and in New York, where shadow regime officials have seized territory belonging to the democratically elected government, the Maduro government in Venezuela. They seized a military attaché in Washington, D.C. They seized a consulate building in New York because no one was in there, and it just because all of Venezuela's diplomatic staff has been forced to leave. And so these opposition so-called diplomats walked into these buildings, took control of them. And so the last front in this battle, this diplomatic war that is being waged against Venezuela, is the main diplomatic mission, the Venezuelan embassy in Georgetown in Washington, D.C. And so a group of activists, including Popular Resistance, I'm sure you guys know Margaret Flowers and Kevin Zeese, as well as Code Pink and the Answer Coalition, have strategized in order to protect this building. And they, with foresight, came inside at the invitation of the Maduro government, came inside starting April 10th, and have been sitting inside of this building since that date in order to make sure opposition activists and opposition representatives can't come inside and can't take control of the building. And I should note, the seizures that have happened so far occurred in complete violation of international law. According to the Vienna Diplomatic Conventions, which established the norms of diplomatic relations, diplomatic properties are inviolable, meaning the officials and officers from a host state, in this case the United States, cannot enter unless they are invited by the government. And what's more, it is the responsibility of the United States, according to the Article 22 of the Vienna Diplomatic Conventions, to protect the integrity of these buildings, to make sure they aren't damaged, and to ensure the rightful government can maintain control. So the United States has violated international law already, and these embassy protectors, the Embassy Protection Collective, as they're called, are saying they're here to preserve diplomatic law. They're simply standing up for international law. And again, they're the invited guests of the legal owners of this building, the Venezuelan government. Carlos Vecchio, that individual you spoke of, Guaido's shadow puppet figure, who probably answers to Trump more than he does to anyone in Caracas, wouldn't even have authority to issue visas out of this building. Their administration, as they call it, doesn't even have a foreign minister. They don't have any control or authority domestically back in Venezuela. So it's completely outrageous to think that they want to seize this building. I like to say that what they want to do is come in here and play government the way I used to play house as a little girl. Like, you know, I stand at a little toy oven and think I'm an adult. That's what they want to do. They want to sit in the diplomat's chair. They want to sit in the embassy and pretend like they're a government, even though they have no authority.
So a big part of this story you've mentioned, but it's that the United States government, the Secret Service, is not protecting the Venezuelan embassy. In fact, they've been assisting the racist protesters. Correct. Now, a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of racism involved in Venezuela and involved in this coup. We had Greg Palast on this show, who's a venerated and award-winning reporter, who explained the situation. There's lots of racism in Venezuela. There's the white upper class, neoliberal class, the capitalists and the corporatists who want to overthrow this socialist government that's been taking care of its people, and they want to overthrow them. And but most of the people don't want that overthrow. They want a democracy. They want an election, and they don't want the United States to interfere. And most of those people are dark brown and black people. And so people don't realize that's happening in Venezuela. And the same people who are coming to the Venezuelan embassy in support of the coup are also revealing their racist hands, right?
They absolutely are, Jimmy. Your viewers won't be surprised to know that due to colonialism and imperialism's legacy in Venezuela, you can't separate politics and from class and race. So you definitely do have a ruling formerly ruling class. They lost control in 98 when Chavez won democratic elections and began this revolutionary process in Venezuela. But there is a ruling class that would like to take control of power again, and they happen to be whiter, more European-looking individuals. And those are the people that are currently right outside this window chanting at us inside. And they have been completely shameless in their behavior. They've called Black members of the Embassy Protection Collective the N-word while we were outside. They've assaulted women. They sexually assaulted Ariel Gold of Code Pink. And then the Secret Service threatened to arrest her. In fact, Jimmy, they assaulted me, and there's video of it. When Carlos Vecchio attempted to address the crowd here, I tried to ask him a question because at the Gray Zone Project, where I work currently as a reporter, my colleague Max Blumenthal reported on a meeting that took place in Washington, D.C. at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, which is a banking, oil, and defense industry financed think tank. And they actually had a meeting titled Assessing Military Options for Venezuela. And members of Carlos Vecchio's diplomatic staff attended that meeting. I mean, very strange for diplomats claiming to represent a people to go into the capital of a foreign country and plan the invasion of their homeland. It's a bit outrageous. So I tried to ask him and say, why were your staff members at this meeting? And the minute I was in his face, he shook my hand. The crowd of people gathered outside, multiple people grabbed me. They threw me away from him. They threw water on my face. And then who did Secret Service punish? They punished me. They made sure I went across the street and couldn't get in their faces and ask questions anymore. So the Secret Service had my fellow reporter who's in here, who I urge everyone to follow, Alex Rubinstein, is going to file a report shortly at Mint Press News about how the Secret Service have moved on from merely abetting the protesters outside and have become a second front in the attack line against the people who are protecting this embassy. The Secret Service have told people who are inside that they're protecting the people on the sidewalk, not the people inside. And they've prevented food from being delivered inside the embassy. They've actually prevented the delivery of supplies from, so it's ironic because they're essentially using the State Department strategy, which they're employed against the Venezuelan people, which is to keep it under an economic blockade and siege. You mentioned 40,000 Venezuelans have died, according to this new report, due to U.S. sanctions. They're now turning that strategy against U.S. citizens in the Venezuelan embassy. They want to starve these people out, thinking that if they don't let food inside, the people here are going to give up and let Carlos Vecchio march in here and play government. But I can tell you, speaking to the people inside this embassy, that's unlikely to happen. They have a plan and a strategy to perhaps win more supplies, but also in the worst case scenario, people are prepared to go on hunger strike. These are people who are willing to put their bodies on the line to preserve international law. And all of your viewers should know that the Secret Service is enabling the starvation of U.S. citizens inside this embassy. They've partnered with right-wing, anti-gay, anti-black, racist, bigoted protesters who are stationed outside, preventing people from coming and going. And I would urge your viewers to call the Secret Service at 202-406-8800 and ask them to obey international law and allow for the delivery of supplies and food into this embassy, but also that they should be doing their job and protecting this embassy, protecting the people inside, and preserving its integrity, meaning preserving the legitimate government, the democratically elected government of Venezuela, to continue operating.
So now a lot of people will say this is the Trump's Secret Service and this is the Trump. People don't realize that the Democrats are also on board for this. This is Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden. They're all a part of this too. So I'm going to show real quickly. Here's some of the people. Here's one racist guy outside. This was tweeted out, and what he says. Here's Alina R. Duarte. She works for Telesur. And so she tweeted out this video of this guy yelling racist stuff at her. And what he's yelling is, he starts yelling swear words in Spanish. And then he says, "Tell me your name." He calls her a swear word. And he says, "Tell me your name." And then he says, "You take pictures because I'm prettier than you. I'm going to be so pretty and white tomorrow, and you're going to remain Indian and ugly daughter. One day you're going to pay for it. And then he calls her another swear word in Spanish. So that's this guy. These are the pro-coup, the Trump people. This is the pro-Guaido, the people who want to have a coup in Venezuela. These are the people, the white racists who want to take over the Venezuelan embassy. Here he is, and here he is yelling.
Ahí, toma foto, pues eso es más bonito que tú. Pero yo mañana, pues eso es tan bonito y blanco, y tú bañabas así, niña fea, hija puta. Un día la vas a pagar, maricona.
So what he just said, tomorrow I will be white and you will still be an ugly Indian. So that's the kind of people that Trump is with, of course, in Venezuela. And those are the people, the capitalists, the neoliberals, and the warmongers in bed with Elliott Abrams, John Bolton, and Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. And this is what's happening in our own country. And here you are being greeted by those same types of people. So they find out you're a reporter who's been telling the truth about Venezuela, and they're not happy about it.
Yes, please. Get out.
Now, what are they chanting?
They're telling me to get out. Fuera, fuera, go away, get out. And actually, the Secret Service, I think that was one of the more higher ranking officers actually asked me to leave again.
Yeah.
I said, I have every right to be here and I'm going to keep filming. Jimmy, these are the Democrats. These are the Democrats in Venezuela. These are the people who are going to restore democracy to the country. People who shut down a reporter just for filming them. I wasn't even talking to them. And they've been playing blowhorns, blaring loud music into the ears of other reporters and individuals who come down and to cover the event or to just keep an eye on them. You see how they're behaving. They don't look very democratic to me at all.
No.
And to respond to the point about Alina Duarte, one of the very brave reporters who's been stationed outside doing wonderful work for Telesur, she actually had her doorknob and her house fiddled with. She woke up the day after that video was recorded, after somebody told her that she will pay a price for her reporting, and actually had damage done to the door of her house. She has to stay with her friends right now because these people are violent. I mean, these are people, Jimmy, that people have to keep in mind. These individuals are connected with a group in Venezuela who have burned people alive. They lynch people who are Chavista, and especially black individuals in Caracas and around the country. So these people are a threat. They're very violent. And they don't hide it. I mean, if that's how they're going to behave on camera, imagine what they're like off camera. And again, the Secret Service has done nothing to protect the people on the inside or journalists on the outside. I mean, it's very, very disturbing that Alina has been targeted in this way. And I don't hear any solidarity from the Washington press corps,
Of course
who
not.
has been so upset about Donald Trump's attacks on the media,
Right, I know.
and cry every time he denies them a question at a press conference.
That's all
I haven't
theater.
heard any of them make a statement in support of Alina.
Yeah, that's all theater. The United States is corporate journalists. Journalists are exactly what Chomsky says they are. They're lapdogs to power. Everyone at MSNBC. And by the way, Rachel Maddow was in favor of these people. That's how
Yes.
bad the corporate media has gotten in the United States. Rachel Maddow, so she is a beard for an evil corporation, and she's now doing the bidding of the military-industrial complex in Venezuela. There's never been a war she hasn't been on board for, and Rachel Maddow was revealing that she was hired because she doesn't have the integrity necessary to tell the truth about our foreign interventions. That's why she was chosen for that job.
I think she actually said we have to go to war against Venezuela to counter the Russians.
Yes, that's what she's saying. That is how her brain is rotted so much during Trump. It took Trump to expose the rot in her brain. But let me show, here's some more people talking to you outside the embassy, and they're going to call you subhuman for just being a reporter. So there's the white Venezuelans calling you subhuman, calling you a communist, saying you're going to be out of a job, saying you don't have a fucking brain because you're doing reporting. in Venice. You're just in DC, Washington D.C., and you're reporting. You're covering something. So here is the food, by the way. So here is where they tried. So they tried to keep the food out. So you see the people gathered outside, and they're trying to keep food from coming in, so people are starved inside the embassy. So that's their tactic. But they've kind of gotten around it. And if you see what's happening, there's the food. So now they're pulling food up in bags into windows. That's what it's come to. That's the United States of America not doing what they're supposed to do and protect an embassy from right-wing. Oh, there's one of the guys from...
Yes, Carlos Vecchio's staff.
That's Carlos Vecchio's staff. And so they're out. Look at these. These are rich white guys in suits and button-down shirts. And they're trying to physically assault people inside the embassy. They're trying to physically take control. Look. So this guy's not going to let him go by. And now watch. This guy's going to come. And he's going to tell him to get out of the way. So the federal agents are protecting the guys in the suit.
Yep. And it's important that you note that individual there is a member of Carlos Vecchio's staff. And in the other video as well, one of the men who was yelling at me and calling me subhuman, is also a representative of the shadow coup regime. He works at the Inter-American Development Bank, which is a bank here in Washington, D.C., which the United States controls the majority of the voting power. So it's basically a bank which is designed to favor U.S. development policy in Latin America. And it's one of the only institutions which moved to accept officials from the Guaido coup shadow puppet regime. And one of those individuals who was calling me subhuman works for Ricardo Hausman, the representative of Guaido at the Inter-American.
We know who Ricardo Hausman is. His daughter did an op-ed in the New York Times saying that we should go into Venezuela. They said she was a comedian. She's not. She's a propagandist who works for...
She's never made me laugh. So
yeah, she's not a comedian. She's a comedian the same way Rush Limbaugh is a comedian.
Right. And they didn't disclose her family ties when they made that video. Right. So these are actually Guaido representatives and violently preventing food from getting into the building.
And of course, the New York Times, who produced that video that she did not disclose her ties, that her father works for Juan Guaido, that she doesn't even live in Venezuela. She was born in the UK. She lives in New York City. She has nothing to do with Venezuela except that her father actually works for Guaido and wants to take over the country. So here is a reporter talking with Joe Biden. Do you know who this reporter is talking with Joe Biden?
This is actually Ariel Gold. She's not a reporter. She's one of the members of the Embassy Protection Collective. She's an activist with Code Pink, a peace activist. She was inside of this building up until just a few days ago and has not been allowed back in. But thankfully, she was on the outside and able to catch Joe Biden.
So here's Joe Biden, real profile and courage. Watch this.
I'm really disappointed in the position that you're taking on Venezuela. You admitted that you made a mistake with Iraq. And it's dangerous to make the same mistake again, going to war in Venezuela. Absolutely. Do you know what's happening right now at the Venezuelan embassy? Just down the street. Would you come by? Would you come by and take a look? Would you come by down to the embassy and take a look? The violence that
Shame on you for sending so many black people to jail. Shame on you. No one wants you to run for president except corporations.
So there's a real profile and courage. That's Joe Biden, again, watching his country's government, the guy who he claims is a racist and under the control of Vladimir Putin. He's allowing them to try to do a coup of a foreign government in South America. That's who Joe Biden is. Okay, just so you know, it's one big capitalist gangbang, and he's the biggest tool of them all. All right? Yes. So he's not your savior. He's the enemy. He's in bed with Trump. Okay? He doesn't oppose Trump. Get that out of your head. Joe Biden does not oppose Trump. He's in bed with Trump. He's in bed with Trump on his judges. He's in bed with Trump deregulating Wall Street. He's in bed with Trump on the foreign wars. He's in bed with Trump. Okay. So that was pretty instructive to see Joe Biden slink away like that, wasn't it? There's a tough guy, Joe Biden. He couldn't even move his lips, couldn't even make a noise.
Very cowardly. And you're correct in characterizing U.S. policy towards Venezuela as a capitalist gangbang with bipartisan support, Jimmy. I should mention the fact that this policy, this coup policy, this regime change policy did not start with the Trump administration. It did not start with the Obama administration. It started the minute Chavez took power in 1998. But it should be known by all of your viewers that in 2015, when President Barack Obama was in office, he actually signed an executive order deeming Venezuela's government a national security threat. And that is what set the stage for this intensification of sanctions, which were eventually upped by the Trump administration. So this policy really began, and most Venezuelans I spoke to while I was there will tell you they don't see one party for them here as better one way or another. They know they're going to be a target of the capitalist interest, which Washington represents, as long as they maintain control over their natural resources and use it for the people of Venezuela rather than the corporate interests in the United States, which bought Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and both parties.
So, well, do you have now you've been to Venezuela, you're inside the Venezuelan embassy. Do you have a prediction on what is going to happen? My quick prediction is that they're going to keep launching failed coups because the people of Venezuela are not going to go along with them, especially the military. What is your theory?
I agree with you. They're getting more and more desperate. I think John Bolton and Elliot Abrams have lied to President Trump and told him that this was going to be really easy. And so they don't have plan B. They don't have plan C. We're seeing it every day. Juan Guaido tries to take over the presidential palace with 70 soldiers who he lied to. That fails. Shock. What a shock there. And so what we're actually seeing is the emergence of Venezuela on the international stage. Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza was just in Moscow, where he got reassurance from his counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, that Russia will stand by Venezuela and support it on the international stage and make sure that these continued blatant violations of international law can't continue. They've created a group at the UN to reassert the importance of the UN's founding principles in its charter: territorial integrity, self-determination, and sovereignty. We've never seen a coup carried out by the United States in this way. We've seen regime change wars, but we've never seen them declare the president changed before the war was actually won. And so what this has done is created a dynamic in which the United States is failing in front of everyone's eyes, and it's created space for Venezuela, for Russia, for China, and for other international partners to say, this can't stand anymore. We're sick of it. We saw it in Yugoslavia. We saw it in Iraq, Libya, Syria. It cannot continue. And Venezuela will have to focus on maintaining support. The government will have to refocus efforts on maintaining support domestically so that they can continue to win elections or continue their process there. And we should all support that. We should support the Venezuelan people determining their own future. And U.S. citizens should pressure their government, call on their Congress people to stop supporting sanctions. And again, call the Secret Service, 202-406-8800, and ask them why they are failing to protect the embassy grounds here in D.C. and why they are letting right-wing bigots from a foreign country starve out U.S. citizens inside the building, standing up for international law.
Anya Parampil, she's working with the Gray Zone right now, doing fantastic work on Venezuela. She's inside the Venezuelan embassy right now. She's a Venezuelan embassy protector, and she's there.
I'm embedded media.
Okay, she's embedded media, and so she's letting us know what's happening inside. So I really appreciate it, and hopefully you'll talk to us again soon and keep us updated.
I appreciate the invite, Jimmy. Thanks so much for covering this because it's been completely blacked out by the mainstream.
Well, and when it's not blacked out, you're lied to about it, right? CNN blatantly lies about the Venezuelan. Max Blumenthal had to debunk them. CNN blatantly lied. They didn't make a mistake. They're lying, just like Rachel Maddow is lying. The U.S. press always lies about war. They're always pro-war. Isn't that interesting? It's exactly how Chomsky said it was in Manufacturing Consent, that the corporate news is there to manufacture consent for these foreign wars. They're not there to tell you the truth about them. And boy, see what happened. It's great to see that Venezuela, what's happening right now is that it's being handled by such monumental, incompetent losers like John Bolton and Elliot Abrams and Donald Trump that we're able to lampoon them very easily, and regular people are able to see what's actually happening, I think, even though the mainstream news media is blocking it out, and blacking it out. Tulsi Gabbard speaking the truth about it. Bernie Sanders just recently came out with the hands off Venezuela. And so everybody, of course, on the internet now is telling the truth about Venezuela. So it's funny to watch these nincompoops from the Trump administration fail so wildly right out in public. It's really fantastic. And I encourage everybody to go to your Twitter feed and check out all the hilarious videos you have of them being idiots right on camera. So everybody check out Anya Parampil. We have her and the Gray Zone Project. They're doing great work on this with Max Blumenthal. Thank you, Anya. I appreciate you taking time.
Thanks a lot, Jimmy.
Okay. Next live Jimmy Dore show is June 5th. That's a Wednesday at Hermosa Beach Comedy Club in Hermosa Beach, California. Go to jimmydorcomedy.com for a link for all tickets. We might be coming to your town. And if you love the show, please become a patron. Please support the show. We give you hours of bonus material every week. And please click that bell and make sure you're subscribed. Even if you think you are already subscribed, they unsubscribe people every day. Just check. Thanks for your support.